free. That doesn't mean that you're not on my mind all the time, baby. And when I'm surfing up on the North Shore, know it's you that I'm longing for.
Good morning, 7:47, Wednesday. Pacific Points, thank you so much. Cabo Enterprises, ITD, and Jackie in the box. Good morning. Speaker Therese Terlaje joins us here in the KUAM News Zoom room. So we talk about relief at the pump, Madam Speaker. I know that there was the Programa Salapi, which they're reviving, and they're going to start accepting applications for that. I know that the governor had come out with a video message saying, the price of gas keeps rising. They're doing $100 a month, I think, for 3 months. And this is for eligible families, right? But you've got a couple bills that are kind of going to what I call like the root of the issue. And these are a pair of bills dealing with the liquid fuel tax. So if you could, Madam Speaker, explain those for our audience.
Well, thanks. As you know, for years, right, Guam's been, and first of all, good morning, everyone. And great to see you all again. So as you know, for years, Guam's been trying to do whatever we can to adjust these fuel prices. And we found that, we need the help of Congress, and we need, potentially federal lawsuits. But in the meantime, we have roads that have always been the number one, issue here on Guam. It's really how we're going to fix these roads. And as you know, so in 2017, we raised the liquid fuels tax, which is the tax that's, charged to every consumer at the pump. And we raised it by about 4 cents back then. And that was to put additional money towards roads. And at that time, of course, we thought that was our only way we were going to fix these roads. But I think that, so I've been working on a bill lately and introduced these 2 bills yesterday. And this is to hopefully assist every consumer from, families to businesses who are, utilize fuel, relying on fuel to get to work, relying on fuel for their industry. Is to reduce the prices to reduce the taxes. And so one of the bills repeals that 4 cent increase that was put on in 2017. And one of the bills repeals the liquid fuels tax entirely from the pumps. And so the goal is that, of course, the savings will be passed on to these families. But also, I've only felt comfortable doing this now because we've seen, we're getting money from the federal funds, particularly for bridges and roads on Guam. And secondly, because we've seen in the CRER, which is the Revenue and Expenditure Report that we just received about 2 days ago, that we're now tracking about $46 million above in general fund revenues that were above what was anticipated. So instead of that money, going towards some individuals or just one, business, I wanted it to make sure it can, work across the board. And so some of that is what I'm hoping will be used to cover this reduction in the liquid fuels prices. So hopefully the goal is to reduce the prices of gas on Guam in a way that we can control. So we control this liquid fuels tax. We can't control the company's prices. We can't control, any of those other factors that we've been trying to get to for years. But this is the one thing that the government of Guam controls in regards to the price of gas, and that is the liquid fuels tax that's added on to every gallon.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to, so where the idea is we lower the liquid fuel tax and then the gas companies will pass that savings on to the consumer.
Correct.
And that's in a perfect world, right? That's what we're hoping for.
Right. But, they report these liquid fuels taxes. So I think it will be very obvious if all of a sudden, they're showing a big change in gas consumption or other, trends. So I think that would be traceable if they are not passing that on to the consumers.
How immediate do you think that this relief would be? And is this something that you think it's, I know that we're being hit with these increases now, but do you think this is something that's set in place would help kind of offset further increases in the future?
Well, it's going to offset parts of the price of gas, right? And if gas continues to go up, we can't control all of that with this type of measure, right? We can only control the parts that Guam has added on to the price of gas. So that's what it will do. So yes, but it would be permanent, and it would require, of course, that we continue to prioritize our needs here on Guam and prioritize how we use the rest of the general fund, and that we use these to continue the improvement to the roads. And as you know, the cost of living has really skyrocketed, and I haven't seen any indication that that will be going down anytime soon. So I'm hoping that this is going to really go further than just even the price of gas, that this money that families are able to save will be able to cover some of their other expenses that are really, really critical at this time.
Speaker, do you anticipate any domino effect? Because I know there's one tax that they always talk about rolling it back, but if the idea is that we're getting money to fix the roads so that we can kind of do away with this tax where we get money to fix the roads, do you see other areas where maybe some of your colleagues might say, oh, well, let's just roll back these other taxes? Or do you see any other areas where you could provide relief for the people of Guam without, necessarily impacting the general fund?
Absolutely. So we have, I think, done even better than that. I've never supported the increase in the VPT, the business privilege tax. They also call that the GRT, gross receipts tax, right? When that was increased from 4 to 5%, I did not support that increase. And I've supported every measure to repeal that from 5 back to 4, right? That was done at a time when, we thought that the Trump tax cuts were really going to impact us severely. And however, since then, we've seen that our revenues exceed our anticipated revenues or our appropriations almost every year since then. And so I've supported every measure to repeal that tax. But what I think, Chris, is that we've actually done better. For 90% of the businesses on Guam, and these are the businesses that are making $500,000 or less in a year, that those businesses, and that's 90% of Guam's businesses, that we have reduced the tax from 5 to 3%. So below the 4% that it used to be in 2018 or prior to 2018, we've reduced it to 3% for 90% of the companies. And so I think that that's a tremendous, it should be translating. Now that's a, good question, of course, that we've tried to prove. When we pass these tax reductions, I think one of the good things that the legislature has done recently is we're starting to put reporting requirements on these types of bills so that we can see whether the promises that have been made, by the business community, that this would result in increased employment, it would result in increased entrepreneurship, right? New businesses. So we're trying to get, we've mandated reports so that we can see whether that is really resulting from these, rollbacks of the taxes. So I would say we have actually succeeded in rolling back that BPT. And I think customers would tell you that they haven't seen that result in the prices of goods, but, and we haven't found a way to kind of prove that either, but we are going to be getting reports soon. They were due already in January and they're late, but should be getting reports to show whether they resulted in any increased employment, right? They allowed the businesses to hire more people or increased small businesses. So those are the two other, goals that we're going for.
I wanted to ask a little off topic, but on that paramedic program, Madam Speaker, because I'd done the initial story on it and we haven't really heard of any development. But so there was this paramedic program that GFD was working with, and then for whatever reason, that program lost their accreditation. But that was kind of like the last that we heard. And so what it did was it left a lot of these fire GFD people who are trying to get this national certification license kind of like in in a lurch, right? So has there been any traction with that? Have you heard anything from GFD or GCC or the entity that's supposed to be granting this licensure for the firefighters?
I haven't seen that discussed. I've been monitoring the EMS, which is the the commission that oversees that type of thing, and they haven't discussed that lately. So, but in a not too long ago discussion that I had with the lieutenant governor, I know that this is an issue that they are trying to address, and I think GCC is always also continuing to try to address that. But, I don't know if you're aware that there is actually a law that was put in place by former Senator Rodriguez that mandates these community medics, right? That they would be out in the community available to all of us. It's a part of, bringing healthcare out there where it's very much needed in every community. And so, we're following up on that to see why they haven't fully implemented that law as well. So, we'll be following up, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also wanted to ask about this EITC issue in session yesterday, where I know that Reverend Tax Director Daphne Shimza provided the legislature with a letter and basically said all that money that was appropriated for with the EITC stuff we got is, basically can't be used, right?
Right. So we've been debating this since the budget, and at the time of the budget, they wanted to use what they called EITC reimbursements to Guam to pay for all kinds of, special projects at that time. But I had consistently said, if we don't know yet how this EITC money is going to come in, whether it's going to be, given to us in advance, like a credit that we use to pay this earned income tax credit, then we shouldn't be appropriating it. So that's actually what's happened now, is that we've got confirmation from the Director of Revenue and Taxation that this money is coming in, it's going to be put into a trust fund, and it's going to be used only for those earned income tax refunds, right, or the credits. So all of the bills where they have proposed that there's all this excess or earned income money that they can use are pretty much those bills are null right now. That source does not exist, according to the Director of Revenue and Taxation. And we only got her letter on this yesterday morning, right before the session, or yesterday afternoon, in fact. Yeah, so that's finally confirmed. We've been waiting for a long time for that to be confirmed. I usually saw some of that money was appropriated in the budget. Some of it was been done in different bills that have come through. Yeah.
So what happens?
They have to do another bill if they want to continue with those programs and find another funding source, or find another funding source another way.
Do you think, Senator, because it kind of seems like there's a lot of bills that come out with no funding source, do you think that maybe this is like a signal fire to the legislature, like, hey, let's really nail down a concrete funding source that you can touch? Because, with these law enforcement raises,
Chris, I don't know if you've watched these sessions, or these public hearings, they're excruciating because we have to ask a million questions to try to get that pinned down. And sometimes they will not answer. I feel like finally yesterday we got some concrete answers. We got an answer on the EITC, which we've been saying for months, this doesn't look like a concrete source. So finally we get confirmation on that. Finally, we get confirmation yesterday on what this excess FY21 $62 million has actually been used for versus what they speculate it would be used for, right? And so we tried to tie them down on some numbers there so we know exactly how much is left before anyone continues to, pass bills to appropriate that money. And so there was $62 million excess in FY21. So I put in an amendment in the budget. I don't know if you remember this, to put 20 million of that towards tax refunds. I actually wanted to put the entire amount because I don't think tax refunds, there should be any excuse for late tax refunds, right? Not in this day and age, there just shouldn't. And not while we're seeing excess revenues. But so we were able to put 20 million to tax refunds. there are a couple other things that will be paid by that. And now, in session yesterday and today, we're entertaining bills that will use the rest of this FY21 excess. So as of today, or as of yesterday, it looks like there was about 5 million left of that. That's not been allocated somewhere. Tax refunds, the deficit, the 1.5 million deficit that was maintained from last year, the 10 million that's going to go to war claims is going to come out of that amount as well. And so now these bills are trying to divvy up the remaining 5 million. That's my understanding. And but yes, of course, that's the goal of every public hearing we have when they are fiscal. There are fiscal notes involved. Yeah. Yesterday, I passed out a couple of fiscal notes because they talk about it completely different, and even two fiscal notes, right? Two different bills. One says we've got 20 million. One says we've got 62 million. So yes, but I think I've been persistent, and I'm not going to let them go on that. I feel like that's one of our main jobs here is when we appropriate, we have to be responsible about it. And we have to, not make false promises to people that this money exists if it doesn't. And let's just continue to try to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, too, even with these law enforcement raises that they come out through executive order. And then, what's going to happen to these law enforcement personnel if we switch, if let's say, the Governor Lou doesn't win, and Governor, whoever the next governor is, like, hey, there's no funding to this. Sorry, can't pay it. How do you kind of handle those big? That's a huge gray area, right? And then when we ask the governor,
what I expect will happen is so she passed it by executive order, and they seem to be just absorbing it in their current budgets. So I expect that in the next budget cycle, that's either included in the governor's request, as additional amounts that they need to cover that. That's how it's going to transpire. And if it wasn't included in her request because of timing, then it will be included as part of the Office of Finance and Budget. So they really prioritize personnel, I've seen. So they will tell us this budget here that we've proposed accounts for all the existing personnel.
Madam Speaker, I want to close on this health professional licensing office hearing that you had, and I do have a couple clips here. I'm going to play the clips, and then we'll come back for a wrap. I know you had come out with a strongly worded press release after this oversight hearing. Are you good with that?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to play this first clip, and in this clip, you were asking Dr. Berg, who's the chair of he's the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, correct?
Yes, he's the chairman of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, the physician.
So he's the chairman, because when I was watching this hearing, I was really just amazed at how little information he could provide as the chairman. It's not like he's a rando board member. He's the chairman.
Not only that, Chris, we gave them the questions in advance. Yeah. So it was, to me, very deliberate that they were, come unprepared or without answers.
Right.
And very disappointing. Not just to me, but, we're doing these oversights for the benefit of the people of Guam. It's because we've received complaints that people who have complained about physicians are not even getting responses from the board. And they're clearly getting no conclusions from the board either. And then we get complaint after complaint. Doctors continue to be licensed, right? While we wait for the board to make their decision. It's very serious, I think.
Yeah. And, I agree totally. We're going to go ahead and play this clip. And in this clip, Speaker Therese Terlaje is asking the GBME board chair, Dr. Nathaniel Berg, about timelines for complaints and investigations relative to those complaints.
I'm sorry. So I missed you asking, can I answer the 5 questions there?
No, I'm asking the questions I sent to you in advance on February 8th. Yeah. So this is the third set of questions.
Yeah, the board set timeline.
Yes.
So I wanted to answer that for you also by looking at what the FSMB says, because that's we are part of the Federation of State Medical Boards. And give you an example of, for example, I randomly chose Louisiana. Which
Can you please just answer what you do here on Guam?
If you would allow me to answer the question, I will do so.
All right. Well, we want to know what you do here on Guam.
Yes, I know. If you would bear with me and just let me answer the question, I would appreciate it. Okay?
I can't hear you.
You can hear me. I'm not muted.
Yeah, please proceed, Dr. Berg.
Okay. So
does the board set timelines for investigating complaints?
Yeah. So I randomly chose Louisiana, who on their FAQ, because it's easily available on the website. And this is in compliance with FSMB, which question says, how long does it take to process my complaint? It says, we strive to complete the review and investigation of complaints within 90 days of receipt of the forms. Occasionally, when a complaint is more complex and involves multiple patients, practitioners, or allegations, these investigations may take up to a year or more to complete. And I would say that's exactly the same as ours. The reason I said it is we don't have that published, but we comply with, so that is Guam's policy that happens to be in writing by the Louisiana board. And that's the same as the FSMB, which is we strive to get these done as quickly as possible. There are complex issues that can take a long time, and many of them are outside of the ability, and we've had this discussion before, that we're outside of the ability of the individual board members or the physician board members to be able to control. For example, procurement processes, as you know, we had difficulty with that, and obtaining out of Guam investigators. And we've made huge strides, and Xenia can attest to this. We've made huge strides in our ability to very quickly identify, as quickly as possible, to identify specialists who will be able to complete those investigations. We work with the FSMB. We have a case where our board liaison identified someone in Arizona who was willing to work on investigating our complaint. And do you want me to answer all four questions, right, or not?
Well, Dr. Berg, if I could clarify, I didn't ask, how long it has taken you for each complaint, because we have a timeline of those. I'm asked if the board sets timelines or goals for investigating complaints. And so you're saying you follow Louisiana, but that's not really been adopted by the board as a policy and it's not been posted. Well, so what about the outstanding cases where you're waiting for members to do the investigations and they are unable to provide updates? Do those what do you do with those?
So in those cases, there are, as with all investigations of this sort, we do expect people to report timely, and we haven't had issues where physicians have been unable to report in a reasonable time frame, such that cases were removed. I have to tell you that in many cases, that would set things back terribly, because they may have interviewed patients, staff, the physician who the complaint is against, and review sometimes documents that are over a foot tall, and reviewing them and getting them organized. We have not had cases where they're unable to meet them due to their schedules. However, as I think you probably know, in the Physicians Practice Act, if a physician fails to attend 3 meetings in a row, we have the option of asking that person to step down so as to not have delays. And we have taken that action. We asked a board member, since I've been on the board, one or two, that we asked to step down to either attend. And we've had several that we had to remind them of their obligations, because one wants actively practicing physicians in our community. If you want people who are held in high regard, they tend to be very busy. So we don't want people who are too busy, right? So we've had physicians who are too busy, and we told them we don't think, who were proposed as board members, that they have to understand their obligation. And as recently as 2 years ago, we had a physician who did not attend 3 times in a row, and Xenia then asked that person to resign, right? And then we had one that didn't attend 2, and we gave that.
All right, that was Dr. Nathaniel Berg, and now we're going to play a clip from, and you know what the speaker, what you had said, Madam Speaker, was, you know, the intent of this oversight hearing was because there have been a lot of complaints that have been made by people, and those people feel like they're not getting the time of day, right? And then so when we had the whole medical malpractice effort last session, the doctors who were testifying, they were pointing at these boards, like the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, and they were saying that these are the safeguards that the people have, and that we're doing it with this Board of Medical Examiners. And so I think if I'm a responsible doctor and I watch a hearing like this, I'm crapping my pants, because I'm thinking, wow, this guy is making us look so bad. And so we wanted to play this clip from a couple of victims who had actually testified at this hearing, which was an oversight hearing for the Health Professional Licensing Office, that's the public health office that oversees the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, Speaker?
The HPLO is an administrative office, so they just do the admin on it, and they're a division of public health, right? But it's the boards who make the decision. It's the boards who have the discretion. It's the boards who are voting on whether to license people or not and whether to sanction them or not.
Yeah, because when I was watching the hearing, Dr. Berg really made me confused about what the responsibility of the board members was, because he was kind of like passing the buck to like, oh, that's the HPLO supposed to do that. So I was kind of
absolutely hoping, Chris, that all the other board members were listening to that and that they go back and listen to that. And I'm writing them a letter because, absolutely not. That all the responsibility lies with them. And what HPLO does for them is administrative work. And if they can't answer the questions, then that means they have no background on how they're making these decisions. Like if they don't know how many people are coming through with complaints in other jurisdictions and how they should handle that, they're the decision makers, not the administrative people.
And so
the board is the decision maker.
There were a couple of victims who had testified at this hearing. We're going to just play a piece of both of their testimony. We'll start with the testimony of Danielle Baza.
As a medical provider, the doctor had a duty to conduct himself professionally, and having trusted him to provide care to me through Oasis, took advantage of that and abused his power. I don't understand why he's still trying to be reinstated by the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, or why his hearings are being stalled. Why are the doctors policing themselves? And how is it not a conflict of interest for the AG's office to provide an attorney for the GVME when they are also supposed to be helping people like me to get justice? And what is the point of these oversight hearings if nothing gets done? And how disrespectful of Dr. Berg to just leave in the middle of Mr. Lebowski's testimony. How insulting is that? And tell me how much he cares if he's doing things like that. His behavior is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Baza. We will now, if you could, if you're willing to wait, in case my colleagues have questions, we're now going to proceed with Deanna N.B. Tyron. Deanna.
Hi, Hafide. My name is Deanna Tyron. I just want to start off by saying my heart goes out to Danielle. I'm so sorry. And to Mr. Lebowski, he lost his son. And my heart and my prayers go out to you guys. And sitting here as a victim as well, who's had my complaint lost by the Guam Medical Board, I have to say it is horrific hearing how nonchalant some of these doctors are in regard to these situations. You are well-educated people, and you guys know what these people are capable of if they have prior things against them. It is just so horrific. In regards to my complaint, this goes all the way back to November 8th of 2021. I tried to contact them and make a complaint. And schedule a meeting with Zena. I had no response until November 16th. I was finally able to do my complaint on November 17th. And then on January 13th, I got emailed by Sienna Galindo asking for a favor because she's working for remote and she wants a copy of my stamped complaint. On January 18th, I requested a copy of my complaint prior to the January 19th meeting, which it would have been spoken about there. I got no response and I did not receive a copy. Then on January 20th, Brianna Sablon emailed me and at 7:30 at night and said, the complaint is missing and if I could please provide them with it. It has been so hard to deal with this, not only as a survivor, but for so many months waiting for something, waiting for a response, waiting for the investigation to begin, waiting for communication back, only to find out that my complaint has been lost. You guys do not have to carry this weight of trauma on your shoulders, but I do for the rest of my life. Danielle has to for the rest of her life. Mr. Lebowski has to for the rest of his life. And I plead that this does not fall on deaf ears and that you do better. You know, Dr. Berg just compared parole to, you know, bringing in other doctors to Guam. Why is that the standard? Parolees is our standard for medical care? I'm disgusted. Our people deserve better. We deserve better, and you need to do better. Thank you.
Testimony
Ms. Tyron.
from that hearing. It was an oversight hearing, the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. Madam Speaker, I'm sure you saw that emotional testimony from Danielle Baza, and she said, what's the point of these oversight hearings when nothing gets done? So what is going to get done after this oversight hearing?
These testimonies, by the way, Chris, they were excellent. These people who have filed claims against the doctors have suffered. I think it's clear they are able to articulate that, and they've had the courage to go before these boards, and they've had the knowledge to follow up with the boards, and they are frustrated with this process, as I am, that they're not getting the answers that they deserve from these boards. And from the oversights here, I've had more than one on this medical licensing board. I don't think any senator before me has ever had an oversight of a medical licensing board. And at first, they kind of told me that, right? Like, hey, why are you going to do an oversight over us? And this is the reason, right? It's because I can't remove a board member once they've been confirmed. But what we can do in the interim, while their terms are like 3 or 4 years long. And what we can do in the interim, and the other power the legislature has, is one, to hold oversight so that we can get to the bottom of why they are not responding. And second of all, to consider whether legislation is required or not to change that policy that this board has adopted, right? So we found at the oversight hearing that they have no policy as to something, standard to apply when they are reviewing the licenses or the potential licenses of people who have complaints in other jurisdictions. They pretty much just go on an individual basis, and that's how I interpreted the testimony. They do what they think in each case. But I would like to see something consistent applied. And the other thing is they have nothing in their procedures right now that says that they have to get back to their complainant, right? And they have no timelines in their procedures at all. And so they are supposed to be doing rules and regulations. Those are supposed to come through here. I'm going to ensure that those include all of these concerns or ways to address these concerns. And if we have to do legislation, then of course we will. We've looked at the reporting that's supposed to be one of the ways that has been put into law in the past to protect patients is this: you put all the complaints about the doctors up online so that patients can see online. And so we found out at the oversight hearing, the status of that is 50 out of over 1,000 doctors, right? That's not acceptable, and that's not protecting the patients at this point. So we've even pulled up a couple of the doctors that have been complained about, and one's record is absolutely missing any of the disciplinary actions against him in other states. And that's why that would help, these people who feel something's wrong, when they see a physician, and they can get online and they can check, oh my goodness, this is exactly what happened in another jurisdiction. That's what I feel is happening to me now, right? And I just want to commend these people who have been brave enough to not just go before the board and make a complaint against a doctor, which is a very difficult thing to do, but to, come to the media and come to our oversight hearings. So we try to allow them this forum. I think it's very important that we create forums to allow this, so that my goal was to have the board members themselves hear directly from these victims how it has impacted their lives. That's the most important part. It's like, you know, sometimes you sit on a board and you think you're just doing this, you know, making a paper decision, but these decisions really impact their lives. And if there's no other way for these victims to get in front of the boards and have their stories heard in person, then these oversights have created that forum. But, you know, of course, ultimately the goal is to better the policy of the board, better the law, if that's what's necessary. You know, I don't think it's necessary to rewrite the law to force them to do something that they should know they need to do right now, right? But if we need to do that, we will. But it's just common sense already that, and they all admitted at the oversight hearing, both the Allied Health Board and the Medical Examiners Board, that they need to do better. And they need to create their own rules, to do timelines. And the second one is to get back to those who have complained. You know, it was a very clear error. And of course, you know, one of the complaints was that they lost the complaint. So all of that was exposed during the oversight hearing. All of that, the board now, you know, has, I think, affirmative duty to fix. And of course, we are looking at the laws as to, you know, do we need to mandate certain things or to change certain things? And one of the things I think we're going to look at, it's a tricky thing to do, but right now they're only mandated to put up online things that have been finally determined, like final decisions as regarding physicians. But I just think we have to address if there are numerous complaints against certain physicians and it is taking the board a long time to adjudicate on those, then all the potential victims or, you know, future victims, more victims may occur if we allow that. So right now they have the default license until you've proven wrong. And then they take years sometimes to adjudicate those, right? So I'm looking at something that I'm sure I will get pushback from the doctors, but that says while you've got pending complaints, they either make a decision on it or, you know, maybe we don't relicense you automatically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Speaker. My takeaway from this whole thing is if you just make it simple and yes or no, the GBME, is it working? I think the answer is probably no.
Well, remember you brought up Bill 112, and during those hearings, the doctors all professed, just let us police ourselves. We will take care of all of this, and we will do better than anyone else, better than, you know, lawyers, better than judges, better than magistrates. We will do better policing ourselves. And that's exactly the point of the oversight, was to show these are the doctors policing themselves.
Mic drop. Well, we'll just end there, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everyone.
Speaker Therese Terlaje, let's go to the CNMI. Ready?